And so it is. We do welcome a Coptic, a dear friend, words of enlightenment. And it's John Medina tonight stepping up. Throughout over 30 years of traveling, John has been mentored by an Essene rabbi, has received teachings and insights from gifted savants in several different states, and has completed numerous courses in esoteric sciences and Christian pastoral certificates. In addition to having his own library on such topics, he has found there's a shortcut to opening the inner kingdom, which is of the teachings of the book of the Zohar. The Zohar is a book of great mystical power and wisdom that the reader will find a direct communication with God. It is universally recognized as the definitive work of the Kabbalah and so much more. The Zohar is a wellspring of spiritual energy, a fountainhead of metaphysical power that only reveals and explains, but literally brings blessings and protection and well-being into the lives that all read it and pursue its sacred text. John has touched on this topic before. He has had a workshop in person at the center and hopefully potentially virtually in the weeks and months ahead. Tonight's topic, though, with John is going to be as beloved. He is beloved. As below, so above is John's topic.
Wonderful to be here again with all you learned minds. First of all, sometimes people are drawn into your life and it seems like maybe you attracted them because there's a magnet between you and another person. Doesn't matter what side of the planet they're on, but sometimes the Almighty just sends a person your way. And recently I was put in touch with a lady in Florida by the name of Sanja, who had some pretty heavy duty beliefs and was talking about the round table, and was talking about King Arthur, and was talking about some of the beliefs from Northern Africa. And I questioned her, I said, well, where did you acquire these beliefs? And who was this person that visited you? And she said, well, I was introduced to him and he traveled over from Morocco or some place in northern Egypt and claimed that he had been a student for over 20 years in the school of the prophets. And I said, the school of the prophets? I said, well, that's interesting. Do you know that there's a Coptic center in Michigan, here in the United States of America? And she says, no, I have no idea. And I said, well, how long ago did you talk to this man? He said, well, it was several years ago. So we've already had somebody come to this country who was educated under the school of the prophets on the other side of the planet in northern Egypt, and I find that quite fascinating. So she and I are becoming good friends, and I'm glad I had this opportunity to do this talk because between all of you and John Davis, I've been inspired to continue down this path. And personally, I've made a link that the School of the Prophets, the Coptic teachings, are connected to the Essenes. And the Essenes are connected all the way back to the White Brotherhood and prior to that. Mm-hmm. So I keep finding these tidbits and I keep finding these connections, and remarkably, they flow. The teachings from these different groups flow with each other. So there's one basic message, and that is, we have the work to do ourselves. We have to participate ourselves, and we have to do these spiritual exercises, and we have to do these spiritual disciplines so that we get in touch with the kingdom. So I'm going to get into some of those things tonight. And I have to say that when I got back into the Egypt's Master Voice, which was written by Hamid Bey, and it was part of one of the original courses that I took at the Coptic Center years ago now, it doesn't cease to amaze me the depth that is in these teachings. So for any of you that haven't gone back to Egypt's Master Voice and read some of the courses in there, I would encourage you to read them. So I'm going to go into just a few paragraphs and then continue on with tonight's message. At the introduction, Egypt's Master Voice on page 4, book 1, Hamid Bey says this: 200 years after the crucifixion of Jesus the Christ and his supposed departure from the earth, he founded the Christian Coptic order. for the purpose of preserving his teaching, pure and unadulterated, until the Christ consciousness should again manifest itself in human form. Thus, the Copts are now playing a part similar to that played by the Essenes. They possess truths which can be of great benefit to humanity, but these truths they can only give out to individuals who have reached the state of spiritual development necessary to their proper reception. The philosophy of life followed by the members of this order is so potent and efficacious that some of the masters of the sect have attained the age of 300 years. Not only have they lived to this great age, but they have retained the health, vigor, and appearance of youth throughout the time they chose to inhabit their physical bodies. He goes on to describe the seven seals. The Copts hold that at all times there are present in the world 6 masters, each of whom possess one word of the infinite and absolute truth, which in itself is meaningless, but the 7th word to be supplied by the 7th master, or the reborn Christ consciousness, will conclude the sentence and allow the pure and complete truth to shine forth in all its glory. This rebirth will take place when humanity is ready and sends forth a call for further enlightenment. The physical body necessary for the rebirth will be supplied by the Christian Coptic order. At that time, the Coptic order as such will pass out of existence, as did the Essenes, and another group will arise to assume the guardianship of the truth. God bless you, Hamid Bey. As below, so above. What is the totality of that meaning? I can't get into that in a half hour. I can't get into the totality of that meaning. But as below, so above is part of this Hermes message, which goes back thousands of years. As below, so above, so below, as within, so without. And I'm just going to stick to as below, so above. Because in my studies, in my favorite book now, or set of books, I should say, known as the Zohar, which is the Holy Grail in the Aramaic. This particular edition of 23 volumes is written one paragraph in the Aramaic and followed by one paragraph in English. So it is one of the first translations into the English language of the Holy Grail. And I'm going to get into some of why I believe this is not only an ancient teaching given directly by the Almighty to us, but it's also something that the Essenes have had within their teachings, and I'm sure that the masters who taught Hamid Bey also had within their teachings. So from part of the introduction of volume 1, I'm going to read this. The Holy Grail, the Zohar, provided an ancient Kabbalist by the name of Donolo, who was Italian, and his compatriots with profound insights into the grand cosmological design. Through the study and application of the wisdom revealed in the Zohar, they gained access to the mysteries of interplanetary relationships, including the external movements of the celestial entities, their origins, and the unique internal energies that first motivated them. A method used by the early Kabbalists to penetrate the secrets of the cosmos was the study of Hebrew letters, each of which is imbued with a particular and immense energy intelligence. When properly understood, the Hebrew alphabet describes how the divine energy diversified into its various forms. how each energy manifests the part each plays in the cosmic strategy, and even how each constellation came into being. Thus, strangely enough, it was through the Zohar, the Hebrew alphabet, and their own earthly bodies that the early Kabbalists penetrated the secrets of the physical universe, while illuminating the origins and deepest esoteric dimensions of the Kabbalistic path. Scientists shake their heads and scoff at such notions, as well they might. For if such ideas as the development of the mind to this universal consciousness aspect were ever scientifically validated, the majority of scientists would be in the unemployment line. What need, after all, would there be of space shuttles if we can travel through space in our minds? Laura Joy, who was a very hard act to follow, just gave us a lesson from Hamid Bey on what our minds can do. This ties directly into that. What need of satellites if we can beam our thoughts instantaneously to all parts of the universe? What need of science if we can learn everything that needs to be known by simply tuning in to the energy of our own bodies? Fortunately, the Kabbalist is not in the least concerned with whether or not the knowledge of Kabbalah will or will not be scientifically validated. What does concern him, though, is personal verification, the kind that can only be experienced personally. And as any serious practitioner of Kabbalah will tell you, of this experiential verification, there is no scarcity. As practiced by the Kabbalists, astrology becomes a science of creative living, assuring access to the realm of the endless continuity and experiential certainty. Through the study and careful application of Kabbalistic principles, we learn to understand and satisfy our own deepest needs and the needs of those around us. As I was pursuing some of the studies leading up to this message, the question arose in one of the Egyptian studies, why the Sphinx in Egypt doesn't have any hieroglyphic message on it. Why some of the grand monuments in Egypt don't have hieroglyphic messages. Because after all, a lot of the teachings from ancient Egypt came through from hieroglyphic messaging. So why don't we have hieroglyphics written someplace on the Sphinx itself? Well, because that symbol, known as the Sphinx, is part of the code. And as I've said for many years, for people who study the scriptures, whether it's Old Testament or New Testament, you're not getting the full meaning until you have the Holy Grail, because the biblical passages are coded and they have to be unlocked. So we have Jesus the Christ sitting with basically 11 Jewish fishermen and a Jewish tax collector. They weren't rabbis. They didn't study daily in the synagogues. They didn't master 4 or 5 different languages of their day. They were fishermen and a tax collector. And Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, says, the day is coming when you apostles of mine will understand the mysteries of the kingdom, and you will rule over the 12 tribes of Israel. Rule over the 12 tribes of Israel. That's in the book of Matthew. Chapter 19, verse 28. And Jesus said to them, his apostles, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Wow. There are a lot of learned Israelites in the 12 tribes of Israel. Somewhere there's got to be a whole bunch of rabbis who are very well taught in the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, in the Hebrew. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe. Why did they put universe, haolam, in that sacred blessing that's over 6,000 years old? Because there's a connection. Well, let's get back for a minute into this ancient Egyptian symbol known as the Sphinx. And this is what Hamid Bey says about it in Egypt's Master Course, Egypt's Master Voice. He says, Book 5, page 10 of Egypt's Master Voice. As we have previously mentioned, the Sphinx was built after the Great Pyramid. It may be surprising to you to learn that now it has a definite relationship to the older monument. It is, in fact, the spiritual entrance to the Great Pyramid. Also, it is a symbol of man's evolutionary progress. As you know, the Sphinx has the lower body of a lion, the upper body of a human being, the face of a man, and the head of a woman. In back of the head are two wings. Thus, the monument signifies that man formerly belonged to the animal kingdom, this fact being indicated by the lion's body. Through evolution, which is motivated by suffering and the subsequent awakening of a desire for knowledge, we gradually acquire a more perfect body. Hence, the upper body of the Sphinx is that of a human being. Since the soul may incarnate either as a man or a woman, male or female characteristics are shown in the face and head. Indeed, each soul must exist both as man and woman at different times in order to achieve full development, for we must all acquire the dual qualities of reason and spiritual power. The law of duality, nature and God, is symbolized in the Sphinx by the face of a man and head of a woman. When a human being has attracted to himself a member of the opposite sex and assimilated the necessary completing knowledge, he is liberated from the sexual urge and enjoys a new sense of freedom. In the Sphinx, this sense of emancipation is illustrated by the presence of the eagle wings at the back of the head. The wings indicate that the sixth sense has been awakened and that man has entered into the spiritual realm. The sixth sense is the pineal gland situated toward the back part of the head. How is it possible that 11 fishermen can understand the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven faster than generations and generations of rabbis? Because they're under one teacher, Jesus the Christ. How is it the tax collector can do the same thing? And eventually, in Olam Haba, in Hebrew, heaven, they're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. That's no small matter. But how did they acquire this knowledge in a period of roughly 3 years when Jesus began his ministry at 30 years old? Are you saying that within 3 years you can acquire enough knowledge to be able to transcend dimensions and understand the mysteries of the kingdom? Well, yeah, you had the right teacher. What did he teach? Well, I firmly believe that he was unlocking Torah for these Jewish fishermen and for this Jewish tax collector. And I firmly believe that by unlocking these mysteries and through the examples that he set, they received divine knowledge directly. Was he teaching them in heaven? No, he was teaching them on earth. As below, so above. Thus, if we take the time here in our human bodies in this realm to acquire the knowledge and to exercise in the proper spiritual disciplines, we can achieve things that to a lot of other people are astronomically impossible. They're not just impossible, they're astronomically impossible. They're so far out there that a lot of these people can't comprehend them. I remember a Native American story from a long time ago where a medicine man was talking to a Catholic priest. And he said, I want to meet this medicine man you're talking about, Jesus the Christ. He says, I want to meet this medicine man who's capable of walking on water. He said, none of our medicine men can do that. Isn't that something? Well, here is volume 16 of the Zohar, of the Holy Grail. And at page 146, it says this. First of all, I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if I'm holding it properly. First of all, it's in the Aramaic, and then it's translated into the English. Come and see, paragraph 73. We see a lot of that in the scriptures. Come and see, when Jesus wanted to teach his apostles something. We learn that a fast is good for averting a bad dream, as fire for consuming flax. That is, for getting rid of it. A fast, the fast, is valuable only on the same day and not in any other day. The reason is that every day below has another supernal day ruling over it. The reason is that every day below has this attached supernal day above. We learn that when one is fasting to avert a dream, the decree is annulled before the day is over. If he postpones it to another day, then it is under the jurisdiction of another day, and no day intermingles with its neighboring day. Similarly, there is a supernal day above appointed over every day, and one should be careful not to damage any day so that it will not remain defective in relation to other days. Paragraph 74. We learn that an action below awakens an action above. If a man performs a worthy action below, the force above also awakens. If a man does kindness in the world, kindness awakens above and dwells on that day, which is crowned with it for his sake. If a man acts mercifully below, he arouses mercy upon that day, which is crowned with mercy for him. That day then stands to protect him in his time of need. Paragraph 75. The same applies to the opposite case. If a man acts cruelly, he rouses the same in that day and renders that day defective. Then that day stands over him to be cruel to him and destroy him. The measure with which man measures will be measured out to him. Why is it so important that every day be sanctified as holy? Why is it so important that each day's conduct that we exemplify to our friends and our family and strangers and the rest of the world should be sanctified as holy. Why did Jesus Christ teach? Think on these things that are holy, that are pure, that are kind, that are merciful in the New Testament. Because we arouse the same thing in the world above. We're connected. There is a perpetual, immediate, ever-existing connection between the world below and the world above. And we construct our own future by what comes from our mouth. We speak into existence and exemplify for the world how merciful we are, how forgiving we are, how kind we are. That then transmits to the world above. And everything is recorded according to the Zohar. Everything will be displayed before you at the proper time by the Almighty. So when John Davis gives his Coptic prayer and he gives the message for the daily prayer, it's very, very important that we work at sanctifying our conduct on a daily basis because there is this immediate connection to the world above. Does any of us know when they're going to pass away? Does any of us know when the soul leaves this particular human body? And what kind of conduct are you going to be measured up against when you pass on? That's up to the example that you set. That's up to the kindness that you showed. And even in other teachings of the Holy Grail, the great book, the Zohar, says that you're constructing the clothing that you're going to wear in the next world by what you do here. Some people check in and they don't have a robe of pure white. Isn't that something? The old term, the white brotherhood. It had to do with the color of the robes, not the color of their skin. You construct what you're wearing, and some people check in and they're wearing rags. Dirty, filthy rags. Visually apparent sign that that person wasn't exactly merciful, wasn't exactly kind, wasn't exactly loving, wasn't exactly patient, wasn't exactly forgiving. But the Zohar teaches, as below, so above. Because there's this immediate, ever-existing connection to the upper world. The great teacher Hermes taught 7 Hermetic principles. And I believe Hamid Bey calls them 7 gates. I believe that I have seen enough for me to conclude there's a connection there to the same principles. Hermes says, the principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple lie open. Quote unquote, the Kybalion. The 7 Hermetic principles on which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based are as follows. 1, the principle of mentalism. Again, I give Laura Joy credit. She wanted to ask me what I was going to talk on tonight, and I was just going to, because she's so tuned in, I was just going to let her carry on for whatever it is she wanted to share with us tonight, and it's right on point. Divine guidance for Laura Joy was right on point. Principle number 2 from Hermes on the 7 Hermetic principles, correspondence, the principle of correspondence. Point number 3, the principle of vibration. 4, polarity. 5, rhythm. 6, cause and effect. 7, gender. For tonight, we're going to talk about correspondence. From the Kybalion, As above, so below, as below, so above, quote unquote. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below, as below, so above. And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Just as a knowledge of the principle of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. What I will conclude with is a book that I found by accident. Maybe it was an accident. Probably was an accident. And as the Coptic library was being cleaned out, some of us had a choice to pick whatever books we wanted, and so whether or not we wrote down the name of the book, I don't recall. And I think Tommy Two Tones was with me, maybe somebody else, and we were thinking, well, look at all these boxes of books. And they were cleaning out the library, said, well, I'm going to pick that one. That looks pretty good. The art and practice of astral projection. Oh my. Why in the world would I want that book? As below, so above. Page 11 from the author, who happens to be a very, very deep man. And I'll be reading this book probably a few times over. The author just calls himself Ophiel, or Ophiel, however it's correctly pronounced. This was first published in 1961, and I get it from the Coptic Library in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Quote, the etheric body is so close to the physical body that you can become aware of it physically. The next time you ascend or descend in a very fast elevator, note the sinking feeling that you have in the pit of your stomach. This sinking feeling is due to the etheric body moving out of contact with the physical body due to the pressure of the rapid movement of the elevator. The etheric body is just on the borderline of solid, and just enough so that it is affected by this type of physical pressure. There is a type of magical work that enables a man to get control of his etheric body. So much so that he can do many strange and powerful things with the etheric body on the physical plane. It is possible during certain times of the 24-hour period of a day to thicken, thicken, the etheric body so that it can be seen and felt by other human beings. The Egyptians, oh my, how do you get this in the book? The Egyptians had developed this type of magic to a great degree. They had a very common symbol for this etheric double, or Ka, K-A, as they called it. The symbol was two uplifted arms joined in the middle where the shoulders would be. The book goes on to explain certain spiritual exercises, which I have discovered are very important. The Coptic spiritual exercises, especially at Egypt's master voice, they're phenomenal. They'll do things for you. If you just practice them, you'll find out. It's the same teaching in the Zohar. You have to experience it yourself. If you do not read the sacred lettering in the Zohar, you don't get to experience it. You don't get to activate those light codes. If you don't do your spiritual exercises according to the Coptic order, then you will not personally experience the benefits. But this book that I was just reading from goes on to describe how you utilize your mind, and you can project your mind down your hallway, put markers on the wall, put different colors. You can put a red marker here and then walk down another 12 feet and put a yellow marker and walk down another 12 feet and put a blue marker and walk down another 12 feet and put a purple marker and put markers outdoors and end up walking down the hallway outside your house in your mind until what? Until your etheric body or a higher body is actually doing the walking. And then what you do is you project your mind to that higher body, and that body then sees from your viewpoint and from its viewpoint. Oh my, how is that even possible? Oh gosh, why should we even get on that topic? Well, 11 fishermen, certainly not rabbis, a Jewish tax collector, learned the mysteries of the kingdom in roughly 3 years from Jesus the Christ. They attained this Christ consciousness. So the things that we are capable of doing start here below. They're automatically connected above, whether we're aware of it or not. But we can be aware of it immediately if we practice these spiritual exercises. So I'll read this again in conclusion from Hamid Bey. 200 years after the crucifixion of Jesus the Christ and his supposed departure from the earth, he founded the Christian Coptic order for the purpose of preserving his teachings, pure and unadulterated, until the Christ consciousness should again manifest itself in human form. Thus, the Copts are now playing a part similar to that played by the Essenes. It was the Essenes who prepared the way for Christ to come. The Essenes possess truth which can be seen of great benefit to humanity, and that group which possess the same truths are known as the Copts. But these truths can only give out to individuals who have reached the state of spiritual development necessary to their proper reception. I think everybody in this group understands what I said, and that makes for a blessing. Because as you receive these truths and you talk about these truths, you're helping other people awaken on their path to the Christ consciousness. So I want to thank everybody for having me here tonight. I want to thank John and Nancy for having me here tonight, and Alan Tutt for setting up a great connection so I could immediately get on there. And I just feel very blessed that I've had a chance to share this, and I feel very blessed that as my as my studies, my individual studies continue, that I continually validate the Essenes and the Coptics and the Essenes and the Coptics. And now I have a woman who's connected to the School of Prophets as a friend. So that's all I have for tonight. And may all of you continue your studies and your spiritual exercises until you know that you know that you know. Thank you for having me. Amen.
Thank you, John.
I conclude.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation and nice review of the Zohar for one, and bridging it into the Coptic Fellowship too, and Master Hamid Bey's teachings. When you look at the Zohar and that thought, how it bridges with Coptic, it looks like another shortcut to the higher dimensions, the astral plane, the higher thought, and inevitably the Christ consciousness. And it's nice how you tied that in together tonight. And does anybody have questions for John on his presentation? Thoughts, comments? Diving into some of his the things he read tonight. Would you like to dive into that further tonight? Anybody share a thought or two?
I'll just say this real quick. You brought up so much good information. It's probably going to take me at least a few days to process.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, I don't think we,
Well, that's a nice thing about having these recorded.
I wonder if
Sorry,
we all
Nancy, go ahead.
appreciate what we've really been given from Hamid Bey. All these teachings.
Wow.
We could repeat them and repeat them and repeat them, and be better every time we study them. So anyway, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I have a question for both Johns.
Yeah,
actually.
Egypt's men.
Go ahead, John. That's
Okay.
fine.
I was going to say, I really enjoy Egypt's Master Voice. I've said it from the first time I read it, and going back to it and reviewing it, you get more depth out of it as you grow. And it's an incredible teaching that, as I said before, shows me who Hamid Bey was connected to and how he goes all the way back. All the way back. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Michael.
No worries. John has discussed this, and you brought that up again tonight about the scenes, and that it went into the COPS, Kopts, I believe it was spelled, and then the Coptic Fellowship. It eventually the torch will be passed to more of a universal thought, belief, or order, I suppose. John, you brought this up in previous presentations. John Davis, that is. What do you see it transforming into, John? I'd just like to touch on that, and your thoughts too, John, Modena. Where we're moving forward, is it the ascension process? I guess I'm looking at is we're all migrating as light workers together as one thought, one universal truth is a world, not just the Coptics. As we look towards the future, maybe 50, 100 years down the road.
I see it as a step to universality, embracing the religion, the thoughts of all nations, all religions. That's the step, because we're living in a time where we're moving into universality, and that is the major step that we're trying to do here. And John described it so beautifully when there's so many different areas, and that's what we have to do. We have to start planting those universal seeds for all people and all nations. And planting those seeds, just talking about it, manifesting. It's as simple as that. And Hamid Bey was a universalist, but he was much more than we really know. So John described it so beautifully. And thank you, my friend. It was absolutely magnificent.
Well, thank you. It's more than a walk. It's more than a path. You know, what the Coptics become known as 100, 200, 300 years from now, I don't know. But they're here to do their divine duty by whatever label they're given for this era and time. And if we call ourselves the Universal Coptic Church, or we call ourselves the Universal Coptic Movement, you know, that's a good thing. I'm happy to see Pistol Pete here tonight, because I had asked him some questions years ago when I was studying Egypt's master voice, Peter Whaley. And he says, John, just do the exercises. Yeah, but Pete, I got this question. And what happens next? Well, but John, just do the spiritual exercises. Yeah, but Pete, but the course says this. And he says, John, just do the spiritual exercises. And he was right on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can walk into different churches and you can do the spiritual exercise. What are they? Okay, down comes a little kneeling structure for you to say your prayers on. Or you walk into Catholic Church and you put your hand in the water and you bless yourself to sanctify yourself as you walk into the church. That's a spiritual exercise. Okay, right, all right. When you take communion, that's a spiritual exercise. Okay, yes, that's a spiritual exercise. The spiritual exercises that the Coptic movement has to teach are astronomical. That if you participate and discipline yourself in these practices, you can see into higher worlds. You can make the direct contact in the higher worlds. Yeah. Yes, the Zohar is a shortcut. The Zohar activates the light codes right on down to the DNA level. That's what it's meant to do. And it's for everybody. It is not only for the Jews. Again, the beginning to volume 1 of this particular edition of the Zohar tells you it's for everybody. The Zohar, or the Holy Grail, was actually offered to the other races first when Moses came down from Mount Sinai. They turned it down. So it's for everybody. So in the Coptic movement, what we have that's so unique, in addition to what John has told us about the life of Christ and what happened at his supposed death and how he continued on after that, what we have in the Coptic Church are these spiritual exercises that emancipate you. Mm-hmm. And they're for every day of the week. They're not just for Sunday. They're for ceremony every day through the spiritual exercises, and not just for a spiritual exercise on Sunday. And you don't have to hop in your car and drive to the church. You can do the spiritual exercises in the comfort of your living room if you want. And you can attain the same results. However, if you don't do them individually, you don't experientially find out that they're the truth, that they're the doorway. You don't find out. Mm-hmm. So when Pistol Pete was telling me years ago, John, just do the exercises, he was right on. Okay, you don't have to ask all the questions. Just do the exercises and you will see for yourself. So as our Coptic order grows, and as the Universal Coptic Church grows around the world, around this country, what we're going to find out, I'm sure, is that people are going to be asking, how do we perform these spiritual exercises to experience these higher realms? Okay, well, we'll show you. Go to Egypt's master voice. There you go. Tells you how to conduct the spiritual exercises. Mm-hmm. I had asked myself years ago why Psalm 119, which is the greatest revered psalm of all the high educated rabbis, it has every letter of the Hebrew alphabet starting out, all 22 letters has got a message. And each of the 22 letters have a message. But I decided that I was going to kind of challenge myself. And so I went through I went to Psalm 119 and I found out something unique. The term meditate was in there 8 times. Okay, that's an individual thing. That's an individual spiritual exercise to meditate. But what the Coptic exercises have to teach you is more than meditation. When you sit in the chair and then you have, well, I won't go through it because I can't equal what Hamid Bey described as the exercise, but connecting to the earth and then connecting to the stars and then connecting around the entire planet, that does something for you. That's a spiritual exercise that is very emancipating. And if you do it right, according to Aegis Master Voice, you're going to get results. Okay, let's say you don't get immediate results on the first round. That's okay. You didn't get immediate results riding your bike on the first round. You might have tumbled riding bike for a first time when you were 9 years old. Okay, get back up. You're going to be a better bike rider the second time. And you're going to be a better bike rider the third time. So when you get involved in the spiritual exercises, don't expect too much of yourself just on your first opportunity to apply them. Get involved in the spiritual exercises that are an Aegis Master Voice that are unlike anything that we're taught in this country. They're unlike anything taught in the church. And so we have Hamid Bey saying that these are the unadulterated teachings of Christ. So I encourage people to do that. And I think that if maybe the name Coptic fades out, which I don't really see happening in the future, I think that as the universal Coptic movement expands, that these people are going to come to the conclusion they have to do these spiritual exercises themselves, and that's what the Zohar teaches. The Zohar takes out the mediator. The Zohar removes the rabbi, the pastor, the priest, the guru. The Zohar removes all of them. The Zohar is direct connect. And the same thing is true of Hamid Bey's teachings. If you practice the spiritual exercises, guess what? Direct connect. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, John. Great presentation. Thanks for the follow-up to some of the questions tonight, too.